Hey YouTube, we are 1 week away from the season turnover of Pokemon Go. So the seasons are in three month stints, and it's a new season of like the general Pokemon Go, but also GBL. And with GBL update comes move updates, buffs, nerfs, new moves added, potential new Pokemon in the new seasons happening. So what I'm going to do is I did this last season where I speculated what I think was going to happen. I nailed a couple last season. I said Medi was going to get nerfed with Psychic. I called Psychic. I said X Scissor was going to get buffed. And I said Lantern was going to get nerfed. I thought they would nerf Surf, but they ended up nerf buffing Spark. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go over what I think Pokemon that are going to get nerfed and buffed and why. I asked in the community post and I asked on Twitter what your thoughts were. So I've got a few of those that I'm going to go over, and we're just going to talk about it before they drop the news, probably next week sometime. So, how in general this is done with Niantic is they really only focus on Great League, quite honestly, because Great League is the most accessible and because it is the one that happens the most. They really don't think about move sets too much for Ultra League and Master League, right? So if I'll talk about Breaking Swipe in a sec, but if they're gonna attack Breaking Swipe because of Steelix, they're not always thinking about what's gonna happen to Rayquaza in the Master League, right? They're really focused on the Great League, and how they focus on it is the Pokemon that they can see is just in their data, super like used everywhere, and a mixture between that and the Play Pokemon Championship where everyone was bringing like Noctowl and Trevenant and stuff like that, and then they started to nerf those because they realized those were being super used. So what can be done in terms of nerfing? So I'm always under the I personally think that buffing moves changes the meta more than nerfing moves, right? And you saw it with, let's just look at, as you can see, number 4, Gligar. Like, since when is Gligar so high on the list? Because Wing Attack got buffed, Aerial Ace got buffed, Dig got buffed. So you buff 3 moves on this Pokemon, and it went from super obscurity to a top meta Pokemon that you now see everywhere, right? So I think it is better to buff moves than it is to nerf moves. That being said, I still think you can attack a couple more Pokemon nerfs. Let's start with Medi's moves. So I'm just going to go over this very quickly because I've mentioned this multiple times. Everyone says nerf counter, nerf counter, nerf counter. You cannot nerf counter because Medi is not the only thing that has counter. Here are just the other Great League Pokemon that have counter. Poliwrath, Scrafty, Machamp, Vigoroth, Hitmontop, Wobbuffet, Defense Deoxys, Pasmian, Haxorus, Surfetch'd, Obstagoon, Buzzle, Phalanx, Escaf, Conkeldurr, Blaziken, Lucario, Toxicroak, Primeape, Hitmonchan, Hirayama, Donphan, the Galarian Zapdos, and the list goes on. Pseudo Widow. So nerfing counter would have a negative effect on every single one of these Pokemon and drop them down. So you can't nerf counter. Someone says nerf Ice Punch. You can't, because it's not just Ice Punch. Sure, you can nerf Ice Punch and it hurts Medi. There are other Poliwrath, Sandslash have Ice Punch. Like, okay, you can maybe knock him down better, but Ice Punch is a clone of all the punches, right? Thunder Punch, where you're getting to like Hypno and Machamps and stuff like, and Hitmonchan and stuff like that. Ice Punch, Fire Punch, right? So Fire Punch affects like even Master League Groudon has Fire Punch. So you can't just nerf Punch. I think the only thing you can actually nerf is realistically Psychic. And they did that once by lowering its damage. The damage lowering was only 5. I think you need to raise its energy by 5. That is how I would think that if they're going to attack Medi, you go after the Psychic and you raise the energy by 5. It's really one of the only Pokemon that runs Psychic, so you can do it that way. The counter argument is it doesn't matter because it has Bulk, has counter, it has Ice Punch for the flying coverage. So if you nerf Psychic, it doesn't make much better. People may just run Dynamic Punch. Yes, they can run Dynamic Punch, but it still limits your ability in like the matchups. We'll talk about things that can like poisons and so if they increase the energy on Psychic and people are like, I'll just use Dynamic Punch. It just makes the matchups against Bug, Poison, and stuff like that much, much, much worse, right? So you can directly affect Psychic. So that's how I would change it. I don't think anything else really in top 10 needs doing. Let's talk Break and Swipe for a second, because I'm going to read Calamontos' comment. I got it written here. A few of you have commented on, I said, like, yes, Break and Swipe can be tough and annoying, but you can also like just wall it with like a Steel Air Fairy. And the counter argument was, it's not that you can't wall it, because everything has like hard answers. It's that unless you perfectly align with your hard wall or something that can like beat it, Steelix can often play out the 2 shield flip switch advantage against your typical steel ground counter, and also come out of the matchup with a lot of energy and sometimes even a lot of health. And then it's a guessing game whether you're going to get debuffed with Break and Swipe or they're going to go Earthquake. And he said that this affects Ultra League more, and I think it does affect Ultra League more. Like I said, I did run into Steelix a couple times in the Toronto Play Pokemon Championship, and it was annoying. It is annoying. I think it is difficult to sort of deal with, but I think it is possible. And I think that Breaking Swipe also has effects against a lot of other Pokemon, right? Haxorus has it. Now they gave it to Sceptile and Heliolisk and Rayquaza, important in the Master League, right? So I think, although Break and Swipe is kind of tough, I don't think you can completely just nerf it. I don't think it's overpowered. I think it's annoying, and I think that it will cause you some problems if they decide to flip switch and stuff like that. But I think that you can kind of just like play it out and adjust your gameplay from that. If they were gonna nerf it, you do one of two things. If you increase you can only do things. You have to increase the energy so they don't get it to it as much, or you take away the 100% success of lowering your opponent's attack and make it something like 70, 60%. So it's not happening most of the time. So that way it's a Dragon Claw clone where it has like a chance to lower your attack, but it's not lowering your attack every single time. And that would severely change how Steelix is played out. In terms of nerfing other Pokemon, I honestly don't see them needing to nerf, right? Because if you just look at the top meta Pokemon, it's not the problem, but a lot of the top Pokemon are based on their bulk as opposed to their moveset, right? Carbink, Rock Throw, Rock Slide, Moonblast, nothing super stands out of that. Lick, Body Slam, Power Whip, again on Lickitung, nothing super stands out on that. It's a lot of times those two are just so dominant because they're so bulky, right? And then you get into the Gligar with all the buff moves. You got into Swampert with Hydro Cannon. That's the main reason. It's Glass Cannon, but Hydro Cannon is one of the best moves in the game. Registeel has not been around as often because Medi's there. Gligar with some Daze can beat you, and you can't throw only resistant moves at that. Right? So Registeel hasn't got nerfed, but it's kind of taken a hit this season. And some of these other Pokemon in like 17, 18, like you can easily like deal with them. So I don't think there are actually going to be a ton of nerfs this season. I think there's going to be some buffs. And it's I'm not even going to say buffs of moves. I'm going to say buffs of Pokemon getting them new moves. And so what I want to talk about, and a couple people have already mentioned it in my comments. I mentioned if you want to deal with, so the first thing is, I know y'all guys have mentioned this multiple times, and I've mentioned this too. Fire-type Pokemon. Fire-type Pokemon, there's no Fire-type Pokemon in the top 100. Charizard is the best, which can be broken at times, but it basically only dominates because of the Wing Attack Blast Burn. And then you're really, realistically, Blaziken, Some people use Shadow Marowak, but it just gets outclassed significantly by like Sableye and stuff like that, so you probably use that as your ghost. And then like I use Ninetales constantly before, but with the meta right now being very ground and rock and water heavy, Ninetales has dropped to 229, right? So the fire Pokemon have taken a huge hit this season. So I said you can either you buff these fast moves that they have, like you buff Fire Spin on Marowak and Fire Spin on Ninetales, or you buff Ember, right? These are two fire moves that are generally used as the fast moves outside of Incinerate. Like those are the three main sort of fire fast moves that people use. So you can buff the fast move. Multiple people have mentioned giving fire Pokemon a either a one turn fast move or a super fast charging like Mudshot clone fast move so that they can charge up very fast. Because the thing is, like, if my Ninetales can charge up super fast and has Scorching Stands for like Lantern and stuff, and then it has an Overheat which can nuke some stuff, then it gets interesting, right? Then it's not as bad as a okay hitting fast move that takes a little slow on energy generation, so you're not getting to your moves. So if you gave some of these Pokemon like Marowak is kind of whatever, but like Ninetales and stuff like that, Cast Form, faster charging moves where they can get to these sort of nukes, Overheat, which is not on here, or like Solar Beam, stuff like that. If you get to those fast, then you can cause some problems. So I think buffing fire with like fast moves is a way to go. Bug is also one that I mentioned last season needs a buff. As you saw, like they did buff X Scissor. They did increase the damage quite a lot. They also did increase the energy a bit, so it's a little stronger to get to. But as you can see right here, these bug Pokemon generally ranked quite low here. Charjabug is one of the top ones because it can deal with like Medi. The problem with Charjabug is that between now having used it multiple times this week during Catch Cup with Gligar everywhere, it's just a wall, and now Clodsire everywhere is also a wall, right? So you have, and Swampert, like any Mudboy or anything that's ground is going to just kill you between the Volt Switch and Discharge. You have to only rely on your X Scissor. You're not going to do much, and then X Scissor is resisted on flying too. So that's why Gligar is just a killer for Charjabug, right? And then you're getting down into Escav, and there's so many better like counter stuff used here. Glycopod's good in the Ultra League, but it's not really useful in the Master League, in the Great League, sorry. And then Galvantula's like pretty glassy. So I think these Pokemon need a better bug move, which I don't know what it is, or they need better coverage moves, right? The problem with Charjabug, like I said, X Scissor Discharge, you're just going to get super walled against Gligar and stuff like that, and it doesn't make sense to change that. You could run Crunch. It has access to Crunch. You could run Crunch instead of Discharge, so you're not completely walled. But that's just one of the things. In terms of bug, I'm going to leave it up there because Araquanid is at 142, and I am going to talk about this. Someone had mentioned cheaper water move for Araquanid and Toxapex. And I think someone else, I just copied and pasted all of them, so they're not in really any order here. But I think a couple people mentioned giving, in particular, Araquanid and Toxapex better charge moves. And the problem with Pokemon Go, and this will relate to, I'm going to mispronounce the name because I don't actually play the new series, but my buddy and a couple others mentioned Aegislash, I don't know how to pronounce it. Aegislash. Something slash. It is a steel. It's a bulky steel ghost Pokemon that will significantly change the meta. And the problem with this, so I'm mentioning in my other video, it can get access to a bunch of moves, but in particular, it can get access to Shadow Claw, Shadow Ball, which would be quite deadly on a steel ghost with a lot of bulk, right? It could be very deadly. The problem is it also has access to like Aerial Ace and Night Slash and what was the fast move you mentioned? Psycho Cut, and what was the other fast move? It was another fast move that wasn't that amazing. So the problem with Niantic, and what they always do, is when they seem to release Pokemon, they don't give them the hardest, their best moveset right away. And we saw this with Araquanid. We've seen this with Toxapex. We just saw this with Clodsire, where a bunch of people recommended, like, give Clodsire a bait move. Like, don't make it, like, give them a faster water or ground move. I think some people were mentioning, or poison. No, poison and ground move. Give them something faster there. Niantic always seems to not give new release Pokemon good moves. So my worry is if this Pokemon is dropped in Pokemon Go, it is very, very, very unlikely that they are going to have any sort of real impact in the short term. So that is new Pokemon and sort of moves. So fire, bug. Let me just go through this list here. Yeah, so I'd like to see better electric moves, which is only for very squishy Pokemon. A couple people mentioned Confusion needs a buff. Confusion is the problem is not many Pokemon use Confusion, right? It's really Hypno and I think there's a couple others. Confusion. I guess Victini and Cresselia could learn it, Confusion, but it's really Hypno. So a couple people mentioned like Confusion can use a buff. It's just kind of like the 4-turn slower, not super hard hitting move there. Let me actually just see what Confusion stats are. So it's a 4-turn move, 12 energy, 16 damage. So if you just simplify it in the sort of per turn, it is an 8 damage per 2 and a 6 energy per 2, which is not bad. 8 damage and 6 energy is not a bad stat product. So I don't think buffing Confusion is going to sort of like change any of the meta there. So yeah. So the other thing that a lot of people mention is getting so yes, this person mentioned 2 things. 2-turn fire fast move that's a wing attack clone, right? So basically same, I said mudshot clone, they say wing attack clone. Basically you want a fast charging or fast/decent hitting fast move for fires. They also mentioned Ice Punch on Diggersby, right? Right now has Fire Punch. If you give it Ice Punch, one is Diggersby's main problem is that it doesn't have really great flyer coverage. So if you give it Ice Punch, it would have more flyer coverage. Someone mentioned that they want to see more steel moves buffed. Bullet Punch, Meteor Mash, stuff like that. So if we look up steel Pokemon, most of the steel Pokemon in here do not really use steel moves, right? Registeel is on here with Focus Blast, Zap Cannon. It does have Flash Cannon, but most people use this combo. Again, Steelix, no. Sandslash, no steel moves, right? There's not really a ton of Pokemon that use steel moves. There's Mirror Shot, which is not really a great move on Fortress. I use Bullet Punch on Scizor, which can get really aggressive if you get in on a good matchup. But there aren't a ton of like amazing strong steel moves. So that is definitely something that could be buffed there. So this person gave a lot of recommendations, so I'll just kind of talk about them. Thunder Fang, Ice Fang, Fire Fang, all +1 damage. 5 energy generation is middling, so maybe as well deal some extra damage. Yeah, so 5 energy generation per turn, 2-turn there is not great. So upping up the damage. I've used Mawile Fire Fang, and every time I use it, I'm disappointed in it. I would rather much use Fairy Wind and get to the charge move faster, because Fire Fang just does not do the damage and energy generation. So it's kind of what they are identifying here. This indirectly buffs fire types, even if it's not substantial, and varies the use of the Pokemon that can get it. So Hippowdon, Manectric, Mawile. Yeah. Wing Attack. Give Wing Attack to Skarmory, Noivern, Aerodactyl, Swanna, Bravery, etc. So we do have Wing Attack that is very dominated by, right now, Gligar and Charizard, which is good. But if I think they're basically saying if your main issue is that the main issue with Medi, I actually should have mentioned this before. The main issue with Medi isn't that it's just got a bulk and super moveset. It's that in the last 4 seasons, Niantic has nerfed all of its like Pokemon that beat it, right? First, it nerfed Nidoqueen with the poison. Fang, and then it nerfed Trevenant with the Grass Seed Bomb, and then it nerfed Noctowl with the Sky Attack, and the Sky Attack inadvertently, like in the Crossfire, nerfed Altaria, right? So it just like nerf on all the Pokemon that went after Medi. So if you want more answers to Medi, giving more flying Pokemon Wing Attack, which is one of the better fast moves in the game here. Let me just, what is Wing Attack's stat product here? 5 damage. So 5 damage is not amazing, but the 8 energy is what really, really pushes it, right? So if you want that ability to get other Pokemon on Medi, you need to buff these Pokemon that can get Twitch. So there's that. Flare Blitz, Bravebird / Wild Charge clone. Instant upgrade for many fire types. Darmanitan, Magmar, Araquanid, Marowak, Incineroar get all instant use. So it's basically a nuke for your fire type Pokemon. Which is, it's fine. Like, it's just giving people more options. I don't know. I think Marowak would probably benefit the most from that, because you can just go Shadow Bone and a Flare Blitz combo there, and I think that would be quite strong. The other Pokemon, Darmanitan, Magmar, I think their stat products are just kind of bad in Great League anyway, so I don't think it affects them too much. Let's see. It's some of these other moves, like they mentioned, like Metal Claw and Feint Attack, make them both 6 power and 7 energy. I guess they're not in the game, or they are in the game, but they just aren't that good. Bulldoze, make it a Scald clone. Yeah, Bulldoze is such a bad move, right? I think they introduced Scorching Sands on a bunch of stuff to kind of give the Bulldoze away, right? But yeah, if you want to make Bulldoze better, Liquidation, let's buff some water types. Azumarill, Celio, and Toxapex could all use these. And then yeah, it goes back to the Toxapex like moveset, right? Brian, every time I see Toxapex in a matchup, I'm like, Brian is a terrible move. Brian is a terrible move. So you need to give Toxapex as a poison, which would be a nice answer to Medi, right? Increase the psychic energy by 5. Give Toxapex liquidation or something. Then you have another answer to, then you have a poison water, which can deal with a lot of things, right? It can deal with Medi as that. It can deal with having a harder move for like Gligar and Clodsire and stuff like that. So give them options. And then a couple people talked about Steelix. Make Fairy Wind a Wing Attack clone. So the thing with Fairy Wind versus Wing Attack clone. So I mentioned that. So Wing Attack is 5 damage for 8 energy. Fairy Wind is like 3 damage for 9 energy. Yeah. So basically Wing Attack is a slightly faster energy generation, 9 instead of 8, but the damage is only 3 instead of 5, right? So you're gaining 2 in Wing Attack, you're gaining 2 more damage for 1 less energy. So if you want to like even those stats out, but right now this is 3 and 9. This is just a Mud Shot and Poison Sting clone, right? Yeah, Mud Shot, Poison Sting, 3 and 9. So right now they've got it as just like the super fast charging move, and they want it saying if you want Fairy Wind to be potentially better for the fairies, make it more Wing Attack so it does a little less energy but still gives you a little more damage every time, which I do think it would actually give them more play. I think a 1-turn fire fast move could change things up. A slight tweak to Surf and Mud Bomb can help bring fire types into the top 100. So they're basically saying nerf Surf and Mud Bomb. And that's the thing, right? I mentioned on the fires is that there's so many Pokemon in the top 10 to 20 that now have a ton of ground moves. So you have like now Clodsire and Quagsire, which is everywhere. You have Gligar, which is everywhere. You have Lantern, which is still everywhere. You now have like Carbink, which is not a ground or fire or water, but it's a rock. So it's like there's so many Pokemon that are just after fire right now. It just makes it useless. A couple of people said Trevenant, give Trevenant its Seed Bomb back. Basically, like you nerf Trevenant into the ground, and now because of that, you have Medi roaming free, so bring that back. The only problem, I mean, you can. The thing with Trevenant is right now in the current meta, it's actually still not amazing, right? Because you have Gligar, fire, sorry, flying, and then you have Lickitung, which just walls the ghost, and you can only throw C-bombs. So you're still losing those matchups, but there's still a lot of Lanterns, there's a lot of Swamperts, there's Medis, so giving Trevenant the moves back would be a good idea. I realized that all those comments were on my videos and Twitter. I actually did not check the community things. Here are the 48 comments, so we can just go through them here. We're not going to change much next season, probably not. Fire types will get buffed. So I think a lot of people agree with that the fire types need to get buffed, and I think that's just like just basically like there's no fire types in the top 100. It's a very limited meta without fire types right now. You're not going to get these new starters. Yeah, give them their signature moves. That's not 9-6 away. They're not going to give them for a while. Buff fire, buff fire. Hope they buff fire, right? So a lot of you are on the same thing. I pray Metagross gets Icy Wind. This is one that would only affect Master League, but it's a somewhat interesting one. So I guess the trade-off is if you give it Icy Wind, in Master League, there's so many dragons, right? You'd still have your Meteor Mash for your fairies. You would lose the Earthquake on your steals, but you'd get an Icy Wind, which would lower your opponent's attack. There's a ton of dragons and there's like Groudon 2, which would do super effective with that. So Icy Wind could give that a bit better. So yeah, Double Kick Zebstrika. I don't think that actually makes it, maybe, but I don't know if Double Kick Zebstrika actually does it because Zebstrika's stat product is not amazing. And now you're getting a Nerf. I pray Metagross gets Icy Wind and Togekiss gets Mystical Fire, and 2 comments down. Nerf, Lunge, Icy Wind, and Mystical Fire. Right? So it's just like, okay. Dragon Pulse gets boosted, and Breaking Swipe nerf, maybe a Bug and Fire boost too. Yeah, so I think it's just unanimous that Bug and Fire need boosts. Breaking Swipe, again, I can go either way on this. I just know that it could be a little trickier said than done. Breaking Swipe plus 5 energy. Like I said, there's only 2 ways you go after Breaking Swipe. You do plus 5 energy, or you do not 100% chance of lowering the attack. Give Sky Attack, take its Sky Attack energy back. I don't know if they will do that. Targeting Medi. Yeah, it's because I mentioned not even going. I don't think you can go after Power Punch because I think there's too many Pokemon that have Power Punch. There's not a ton of Pokemon that have Dynamic Punch. There's a couple. So you're 5 less damage on Medi, and then increasing the. I think Psychic going up. If I had to bet on only one thing happening this season, Psychic going up 5 energy seems like the most obvious thing. Breaking Swipe will take 5 more energy. So a lot of people just want the Breaking Swipe to be a little more. Would be cool if they actually nerf Lantern this time. Yeah, so basically the analysis on Lantern is nerfed if you are against the ground or electric and your Spark is doing a lot less because it now takes longer to get to the Surf, and it's actually buffed if you play any sort of neutral matchup because the Spark and Surf with your bulk adds up quite a lot. Breaking Swipe needs to be nerfed. So I hope they nerf counter, which I already explained why they can't nerf counter. Sorry. Nerfing Hydro Cannon for good. Greninja Stomper 209 for now. I don't think you can nerf. The thing is, like, Greninja and Swampert are tricky ones because they can get like they can beat so fast with grass, and they're actually like quite glassy that yes, they can be annoying if you're spamming Hydro Cannons, but they can also be like if they lose, like just look at the top meta. They'll lose to Medi, they'll lose to, I mean, Lickitung may be, nah, I actually think it's, if you get a power whip off, you probably take the Greninja, even though it's dark, right? So you beat those there. Yeah, but you know what? I think against most of the main meta, it's actually quite strong. But wait, I mean, we haven't even got to like the grass yet. But Pelipper beats them. Mandibuzz, Mandibuzz, no, Mandibuzz won't beat the. I keep wanting to say Swampert, but it won't beat the other one. Greninja. It will not be Greninja. Greninja is ranked 46 in Great League. That's quite interesting, actually. I know it's strong in Ultra League, but I'm actually surprised it's that strong in Great League. So those are basically your thoughts on the meta and my thoughts on the meta too, right? So in conclusion, as we wrap up a 30-minute video, if you're going to attack Medi, it's got to be Psychic, increase energy. If you're going to attack Break and Swipe, it's got to increase energy by 5 or lower. It's 100% attack of lowering your attack. I think the best way to do this is to buff Pokemon. I think you can buff Pokemon that directly affect Medi. So buff your Flyers, buff Bug, buff Fire because there's nothing in the top 100. That'll switch it up a bit. Just give other Pokemon more coverage moves. Like if you give like, I like the Diggersby one, giving an Ice Punch. Like give other Pokemon coverage moves so they can start covering some of the top meta. And then new Pokemon that'll be introduced to the game. Again, I'm never optimistic that a new Pokemon introduced to the game won't come with a crap moveset to start, because the Niantic has just showed constantly over the past like few what should be meta breaking Pokemon that they just nerf the moveset and don't make it meta breaking. So there is that. So those are my thoughts. Let me know any other thoughts you have in the comments below. I may or may not do a video this afternoon. I haven't shot it yet. If I do shoot, it's gonna be in the morning. I may do one just for it, but I know it's American Thanksgiving, and I know that it's like the last day of Catch Cup and no one cares. I saw it in the views across, not just my views, like all the views across Pokemon Go are taking a beating right now. But then tomorrow for sure we will do top teams for Great League and top teams for Ultra League if you are trying to push for Legend. And then there's 1 week left, and then we will do a Beyond the Hype news analysis when we get the news of the new season. So that is it. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you are expecting or want. And I will see you guys in the next one.